All right, let's dive into Camsing Healthcare and give it a proper financial checkup. After some really tough years, their latest numbers are out, and we're going to break it all down to answer one big question. Is this company finally turning a corner?
So first up, a little background. Camsing Healthcare, which you probably know through its brand Nature's Farm, is in the health food and supplement game here in Singapore. But, if you look at their finances over the past few years, it's pretty clear the company has been in, let's say, critical condition. They've been dealing with steady losses and just a really difficult retail environment.
And that's really the heart of it all today, isn't it? This latest report gives us a fresh peek under the hood. So is the patient stabilizing? Is Camsing actually starting to heal?
Okay, let's get right to the headline news, the biggest takeaway from their whole income statement. And you know what? On the surface, it's actually a little glimmer of good news. Here's the bottom line. Camsing is still losing money, yes, but the key thing is that the loss is getting smaller. For the first 9 months of their fiscal year, it went from a $665,000 loss down to $571,000. That's a 14% improvement. Look, they're still in the red, but they're bleeding less cash. And for a company in their spot, that is a genuinely positive sign.
Now, a smaller loss is definitely a step in the right direction. But the big question you always have to ask is how? How did they do it? Did they suddenly have a massive surge in sales, or is something else going on behind the scenes? Let's peel back the layers.
And this, right here, is the real story of this report. The reason the loss got smaller isn't because of a sales boom. Nope. It's a story of a strategic retreat, a trade-off between sales going down and costs going down even faster. Okay, just look at the contrast on this slide. It's pretty wild. See that top line, revenue? It's down 16%. That's not great. But then look down at that third line, marketing and distribution costs. Whoa, they have been slashed by a massive 49%, from almost $2.9 million down to less than $1.5 million. This right here is the secret sauce to their smaller loss.
And this really just sums up their whole approach. They weren't trying to grow their way back to health, at least not yet. They were shrinking their way to a more manageable business. And they were okay with taking a hit on sales to get huge savings on their costs.
So how'd they pull that off? Well, as you can see, it all boils down to one major decision: closing their physical retail stores. I mean, it makes sense, right? You shut down stores, your revenue is going to drop, but the impact on your costs is even bigger. You save on rent, you save on salaries for the staff at those stores, you save on all the local ads. They basically pulled the plug on their biggest expenses.
So far, it sounds like some smart, if painful, moves. But cutting your losses is only half the story. Now we need to flip over to the balance sheet. And, well, this is where the picture gets a lot more dangerous. This is the reality check.
Before we get to the numbers, we got to talk about this really important accounting idea called going concern. It sounds complicated, but all it really means is the basic assumption that a company can keep its doors open for the foreseeable future. So, when auditors issue a going concern warning, it's a huge red flag. They're basically saying, hey, there's a serious risk this company might not make it. And yep, Camsing has one of those warnings.
So why the warning? This slide just lays out the grim facts. They're still losing money, they're in a massive deficit, they have almost $3 million in debt, but the number that just jumps off the page is their cash, just $66,000. That is an incredibly thin safety net. Honestly, the only thing keeping the lights on right now is a promise of financial help from their main shareholder.
Let's just focus on that deficit for a second. As of last October, Camsing had net liabilities of over $5.8 million. In simple terms, what that means is if you sold off every single thing the company owns, every asset, every bottle of vitamins, it still wouldn't be enough to pay off all of its debts. They literally owe more than they own. So, what we have here is a company that's doing a good job cutting its losses, but is also walking on a financial knife's edge. This is where your strategy means everything. So what's the game plan to get out of this mess?
Well, we don't have to guess. In their own words, from the report's commentary, the strategy is crystal clear. It is a hard pivot away from that expensive physical store model and a major push into the digital world. So we can break their plan down into 4 main parts. They're still doing step 3, closing those unprofitable stores, but the future is all about steps 1, 2, and 4, developing new products, finding new ways and places to sell them, and most importantly, building out that online business, which they say is already starting to look promising.
At the end of the day, Camsing is trying to completely transform itself.
The goal isn't to be a big retail chain anymore. The new vision is to be a leaner, quicker, digital-first company that can finally become profitable, even if it means being a smaller business overall.
And that really brings us to the final thought here. The strategy makes perfect sense on paper, right? Cut the fat from expensive retail and bet it all on a leaner online model. But the clock is ticking. With only $66,000 in the bank and millions in debt, the real question isn't whether the pivot is the right move. It's whether it will pay off before time and money run out.